Having a carbon steel knife is a thing of beauty. To me, they're basically the Ferraris of the knife world. But like a Ferrari, they require some maintenance. And you may have developed some discoloration or even some rust. In this video, I'm going to show you two simple methods that are going to get your knife back in shape. Let's dive in. Okay, so with carbon steel knives, water, moisture is your enemy. And they don't seem to necessarily get along with onions. So when you're chopping up onions, you'll notice almost immediately discoloration. But your carbon steel knife is going to develop patina. Patina is going to happen no matter what. But there's two types of patina. So let's talk about patina and let's talk about rust. Good rust will develop naturally, and it's actually good for your knife. It's a protective layer. It's the bad rust, the dark brown rust, that you should be concerned with, because that dark brown rust is actually what's eating away at the metals. But having some discoloration, some patina, is actually a good thing. It's the dark stuff you should be very, very cautious of. So in summary, not all patina is created equally. And likewise, depending on how bad things are for you, for your particular knife, you may want to involve an expert. So if you're restoring a knife that has a lot of rust, it's been abused for many, many years, these two options may not work for you, and you may want to contact a professional, someone that actually will restore your knife. But in this video, we're going to talk about basic surface rust, discoloration, and getting rid of that bad rust. Now, there's also a concept called forcing patina, and you're generally trying to force that good patina, the good stuff that's going to help protect your knife. And you can actually do that by grabbing some distilled white vinegar and rubbing it very gently with a paper towel and forcing that patina to happen, sort of accelerating the process. A lot of knife experts do recommend that you do that, or you can just let it happen naturally. Okay, let's talk about the first option, which is probably the most popular, cost-friendly option, using a rust eraser. So like I said, a rust eraser, whatever you want to call it, is very popular, it's very cheap, it's very effective. But it does require some basic techniques because it can be abrasive and you can get unwanted scratch marks. So keep that in mind. And really, you should only be using this on discolored areas. So how do you use one of these? Well, in general, you want to wet the rust eraser or soak it in water, which is even better. You want to find or identify the natural grain of your knife, your blade. You're basically going to see these lines that are very particular to your knife, and that's the grain. Now, I personally only like to go in one direction, following that grain. But a lot of people will recommend going back and forth, as long as you are following the grain of the knife and not going against it. Because you do not want to ruin the natural grain and cause unnecessary marks or just make it look bad. And then you basically just want to gently keep going until the discoloration or the rust is completely removed. It's really that simple. And of course, wash your knife with soap and water. Soap is okay. Just make sure you thoroughly dry it off. And then I highly recommend that you add a protective layer of oil. Just add in some oil to allow the knife to soak it back in. I'm using a napkin because the oil here leaked during the shipping process, but most rust erasers, and by the way, this is a fine grain rust eraser, do come with knife oil. Now, the knife oil can be anything. It doesn't have to be specifically knife oil. This is a generic label. You can use any vegetable oil in your kitchen. That should do. So what are the pros and cons? Well, it's fairly easy to use, right? You just have to make sure you're following the grain. It's very effective. It's very quick. You'll see the discoloration or the rust being removed almost instantly, but it is abrasive. So if you're doing it on a spot that does not have rust or discoloration, you're going to have unwanted scratches. And likewise, if you have a very unique knife or blade that's handmade, hand-forged, with unique marksmanship, you may not want to use this because that marksmanship is beautiful and you may alter it. So that's a big con to the rust eraser. Now, another gentler alternative method is actually using Barkeeper's Friend. Barkeeper's Friend and a sponge can go a really long way. I know all of you are familiar with Barkeeper's Friend. I highly recommend this for stainless steel cleaning. I love Barkeeper's Friend. It can be used for all kinds of different things. So generally speaking, Barkeeper's Friend really is miraculous. All you got to do is sprinkle a bit on your blade, apply some water, or add some water to your sponge. Use the soft side of the sponge and gently rub it into the blade. It's going to take a little longer. It's not going to be as instant as the rust eraser, but you'll start seeing the discoloration and the rust being miraculously taken off. I really like this method, especially for my Japanese blade, because that is handmade. It has beautiful marksmanship. I don't want to alter it in any way. I feel like Barkeeper's Friend does a great job of gently removing any surface rust or discoloration. Now, it's important to note, Barkeeper's Friend is a chemical, so you do not want to leave it on the blade for too long. And you need to wash the blade thoroughly afterwards and lubricate it with a thin layer of oil. Always apply oil after using Barkeeper's Friend. We know that this stuff is a powerful, powerful cleaner, and it can strip oil and seasoning off of pans and so forth. I mean, that's really what it's designed for, to clean things. So it's probably stripping off any of the natural oils in the blade. Applying oil afterwards just ensures that, your blade will be okay and protected. Okay, so what can you do to prevent rust or discoloration on a carbon steel knife? There's a couple things you can do, but primarily you need to get in the habit of working a bit differently in the kitchen. Your workflow needs to be a little bit different, that's all. Anytime you're using a carbon steel knife, anytime you're chopping or cutting things up, if you see moisture on the blade, or especially if you're cutting acidic foods like lemons or even onions, you want to make sure that you have the kitchen towel handy all the time, put it on your shoulder, put it, hanging off of your pocket, whatever, and get in the habit of frequently wiping the blade. Now, I know that can seem annoying, but once you get into the habit of doing that, it's not that big of a deal. And really, the benefits of having a carbon steel knife, in my opinion, outweigh the slight inconvenience of just taking care of it. Likewise, you always want to thoroughly wash your carbon steel knife at the end of, your session, and it's okay to use soap. It's okay to use soap and water. Just wash it off, but just make sure you completely dry it. And then I personally like to hang my knives on a magnetic strip. I feel like it adds to that air circulation. It allows them to dry thoroughly even more. And just in general, with the magnetic strip, I just see a lot of pros to it. They're out, they're hanging, and I have easy access to them, so I can quickly grab them, and I love how they look. But if you are going to store your carbon steel knives for a long period of time, make sure you oil them up. Apply a thin layer of oil. You can buy knife oil if you like. You can buy some oil from the manufacturer, and actually, when you buy these knives, they usually come with a little container of oil to help you, lubricate them and maintain them, store them away, and so forth. Or you can just apply some vegetable oil, whatever is around your house. But if you are going to store them away for a long period of time, protect them. Protect them against the elements. That thin layer of oil will go a long, long way. I absolutely love my carbon steel knives. Yes, there's a bit of maintenance that's required, but I think it's well worth it. And honestly, the performance that you get out of them and that natural patina that happens over time is so unique, it's so beautiful, and it's the perfect knife to pass down to your loved ones. So, if you can, purchase a carbon steel knife for yourself.